morning. My name is Carol Tomkeel, and on behalf of my Advanced Placement Literature and Composition class, I'd like to welcome you to the MacDuffie School. We are a 6 through 12 boarding and day school situated on 300 acres in Granby, Massachusetts. Today, we are coming to you with the help of the Holyoke Media Center, which is generously giving its time and resources to help us film the debate you are about to watch. My students, who will introduce themselves momentarily, have begun their drama unit with plays by the ancient Greek tragedians. The subject of today's debate is Euripides' Medea. Will the team supporting the character of Jason in the play please introduce themselves first?
Thank you, Ms. Tomkeel. Hello, my name is Em. I am part of Ms. Tomkeel's AP Lit class. Other than AP Lit, I take AP Modern World History, AP Environmental Science, Honors Calculus, and Creative Writing. When I'm not in my classes, I like watching horror movies, drinking tea, and, of course, snuggling with my cat, Daisy. After high school, I plan to attend a 4-year college and hopefully study English literature. Thank you.
Thank you, Em.
Hi, my name's Gabby, Gabby. I'm a senior at the MacDuffie School. I'm in Ms. Tomkeel's AP Lit class. Outside of this class, I also take calculus honors, keyboarding skills, public speaking, and AP Environmental Science. When I'm not in school, I like to play soccer and softball, and I plan to attend a 4-year college.
Thank you, Gabby.
My name is Romer. I'm a senior at the MacDuffie School, and I'm a member of Ms. Tomkeel's AP Lit class. In addition to AP Lit, I take AP Bio, Calculus Honors, Anatomy and Physiology Honors, Art Foundations, and Keyboard Skills. I'm from New York, and outside of school, what I like to do is play soccer and baseball.
Thank you, Romer. And would the team supporting the character of Medea please introduce themselves?
Hello, my name is Ava. I'm from Belchertown, Massachusetts. I'm a member of Ms. Tomkeel's senior AP Lit class, but along with that, I am in music theory, modern, and AP world. Besides my classes, I also enjoy playing the violin, baking, and holding my guinea pigs, and I have plans to go to a 4-year college and hopefully study violin performance.
Thank you very much, Ava.
So my name is Zeynep. I am a senior at MacDuffie School. I am from Istanbul, Turkey. I am a member of Ms. Tomkeel's AP Literature class, and along with that, I also take AP Calculus BC, AP Statistics, and AP Environmental Science. I have plans to go to a 4 years college, and hopefully I'm gonna major in computer science.
Thank you, Zeynep. So it was previously determined that the team representing the character Medea would begin with their opening statement, which we'll hear now. Medea's opening statement.
In the profound tragedy Medea by Euripides, we believe Medea should be sympathetically supported rather than vilified as a source of evil within the narrative. It is vital to consider the profound injustices she endured, particularly in the context of a deeply patriarchal society of ancient Greece. Medea, a woman discarded by her husband Jason in favor of a Greek woman of higher social status, is left vulnerable and isolated, her emotional suffering amplified by the betrayal of the one person she trusted. Medea's refusal to conform to Greek female stereotypes and her strategic challenges to these normalities should be admired as acts of resistance against societal oppression. Furthermore, the play's own disagreement with the extreme actions taken by Medea, such as filicide, suggests that her punishment may not align with the perceived crime. Her actions, while shocking, are better understood as a desperate response to the systematic injustices that marginalized and disempowered her as a foreigner and as a woman within a deeply restricted marital framework. In supporting Medea, we recognize the complexities of her character and the broader social and gender dynamics at play, shedding light on enduring themes and issues that continue to resonate in our modern world.
Thank you very much, Team Medea. Now the opening statement for Team Jason.
Thank you. Filicide, by definition, is the killing of one's son or daughter. In 1994, Susan Smith drowned her two sons, 3-year-old Michael and 14-month-old Alexander, in a lake so she could start a new life with her former lover. Her defense argued that her mental health issues should have made her blameless by reason of insanity. She was sentenced to life in prison. On June 20th, 2001, Andrea Yates drowned her 5 children in the bathtub of their home. While initially sentenced to life in prison, it was later decided that she would live out the rest of her days in a mental institution. In the cases of these 2 women, it is clear that by reasonable standard, a murderer is a murderer. Whether they are driven to murder by their sadness or anger, Medea kills her 2 children. Not only did she kill her children, but also the daughter of the king. These actions are inexcusable and must result in justice being served in one way or another. Medea was a woman who, by all accounts, acted as if she didn't love her family, especially her children. With the murder of her brother and her children, it is clear that she was obsessed with gaining the affection of Jason and subsequent revenge. This, coupled with her suicidal ideation, led to a catastrophe. Left in the wake of Medea's actions was Jason. Suddenly, he was left without his beloved children and his prospective new partner. Jason, who had simply fallen out of love with the mad woman he had kept the company of, committed no crime other than wanting to divorce his wife. This action in itself was commonplace in ancient Greek culture. This was entirely within his right to do. Jason was a brave man. He went through an epic quest, building the ship the Argo and assembling the Argonauts, all with the end goal of retrieving the Golden Fleece. To do this, he had to face a fire-breathing bull and a dragon. By doing this, he gained status as the king of Aeolus. Jason can be considered the archetype of a Greek hero, whose life becomes somber through the actions of one wicked woman, Medea.
Thank you very much, Team Jason. Now we'll begin the debate. Debaters, you may comment on the opening statements that you've just heard, or you may raise points of your own. Going back to Team Medea.
Okay, so I'd like to begin with some research from Jonathan Shea, a staff psychiatrist in the Boston Department of Veterans Affairs Outpatient Clinic. But before I do that, I want to say the point of this debate. So we're really we know that Medea committed filicide, but we have to give some reasoning behind that. So according to Jonathan Shea, Medea, he kind of compares her to this war soldier who is suffering from trauma, betrayal, and isolation. So while this is not making her actions innocent, it is giving some reasoning and justifying it. So Medea faces marital and maternal conflict, and in the Greek society, it was typically expected of women to pick the maternal conflict, but instead, her energies go towards her marriage, and as a result, when Jason decides to divorce her, she commits filicide. So these internal conflicts are basically the result of her actions.
So just to quickly summarize, Team Medea is saying that Medea is acting as a result of the trauma she's faced, the kind of trauma that's similar to wartime trauma. And in fact, she was, in a sense, involved in a kind of war with her father and the quest of the Golden Fleece. All right, coming back over here to Team Jason.
Well, we do understand that there was reason behind this. I want to point back to our opening statement in pointing out that Susan Smith, who did drown her 2 children, suffered severe sexual abuse all throughout her life, as well as physical abuse and many other abuses. And while you do point out that, yes, there is reason, just like in this reason, she was sentenced to life in prison. A soldier having PTSD and then killing someone outside of the battlefield, that is not something that can be excused. That is still something that leads to severe punishment and can't just be excused by saying this person has suffered.
So the Jason side is saying that while psychological conflict might make the actions of a character understandable, they don't necessarily erase the culpability of that character. Over here to Medea.
So we understand that it doesn't justify just by saying that her psychology made them do. But also, we believe that God also had an influence on her. So to give an example, our question is, why did the gods help her at the end to escape from her punishment? So there are other examples in the Greek mythology. For example, Tantalus, a mortal king in Greek mythology, stole ambrosia and nectar, the food and drink of the gods, and shared them with the other mortals. He also killed his own son, Pelops, and served them as a meal to the gods in an attempt to test their omniscience. As punishment for his actions, Tantalus was condemned to eternal torment in the underworld. He was placed in a pool of water up to his neck and was unable to reach a fruit above him. So in here, the Greek punished Tantalus for his actions, but why didn't they punish Medea, but help her at the end?
So again, to quickly summarize, Team Medea is saying, if Medea is so evil, why is she rescued by the gods?
So in this point, we have to acknowledge that in the context of Greek mythology, not every Greek god is portrayed as morally upright or just. For example, the god Ares is the god of war. He provides bloodshed and war wherever he goes and causes massive death and suffering. So to say, well, one god helped this person, sure they did, but that doesn't make them right because, the gods cause suffering and chaos. It just depends on which god you're speaking of.
So Team Jason is saying you have to consider the nature of the ancient Greek gods who were not necessarily known for their morality. Over here to Medea.
All right, so then in that case, we're going to bring up the point that Medea's actions were the results of the god's will. So our question is, why did Aphrodite drive her to do these things? So Jason says, it was the goddess of love and none other, mortal or immortal, who delivered me from the dangers of my quest. So basically here, Jason is contributing that Medea and all that she did to help him was actually a result of Aphrodite, the goddess of love. So he's basically saying that her actions were the result of the gods and not her own.
So Team Medea is saying it's really irrelevant whether the gods are moral or not. The fact is that they have power, absolute power over humans, and that Aphrodite has chosen to favor Jason and put Medea in a very, very precarious situation.
You say that the gods are the power behind her actions and her thoughts, but we've seen there's evidence in the play that when Medea found out about the death of the princess and the king from the messenger, her response was, "But take your time, my friend, speak on. How did they die? You would double my delight if they died in agony." So from this quote, we can tell that Medea was her actions were premeditated, and she wanted the princess and the king Creon to die, and they were her victims, and that was like part of her plan. So it wasn't the gods controlling her actions, it was her actions. She knew what she was doing, and she was happy with the outcome.
So Team Jason is saying Medea might have been controlled at some point by some god, but that was not the case throughout the whole play, and that, in fact, she exercised her own free will, especially where the king and the princess were concerned and where their murder was concerned.
So we want to raise a new point that Jason knew that Medea was reckless. Jason knew that he should be concerned for his children's safety, and yet exiled them along with Medea. So we're asking, why did Jason let his children to get exiled along with Medea, even though he knew he was trying to save his children?
So Jason's character is questionable, especially with respect to his supposed care for his children. Over here.
So to that we have a quote. But still, despite everything, I have come here with unwearied guile to contrive on your behalf, madam, that you and the children will not leave this country lacking money or anything else. Exile brings many hardships in its wake, and even if you do hate me, I can never think cruelly of you. So this was said by Jason to Medea, and this kind of just explains how Jason wanted his family to stay so that he could keep in touch with his children. He didn't want to exile his children because it causes many hardships, as he said. And even though he knew Medea was crazy, he still wanted to keep his children nearby him. So even if he exiled Medea and his children, they could do the same thing. She could do the same thing to her children there that they could here, and maybe he could try to stop whatever she did while he was around.
So textual evidence shows that Jason was working resolutely with the king to provide for some type of safe haven for his children and even his wife Medea.
Yes, Medea was exiled, but his children shouldn't have been exiled either. So Jason knew that Medea was a danger to his children. She even admitted, "Just now, when you were wishing them long life, a pang of sorrow came over to me, in case things would not work out that way." This quote kind of foreshadows that the danger that the children are in. And he still says, "I shall see that they are all right," but then exiles them with their mother, even though he knows that they are not safe.
So Jason's words do not necessarily match his actions. There's ample evidence, according to Team Medea, that Medea is unstable, and their question is, why would a good father ever leave his children with such an unstable mother? Team Jason.
Now, we'd like to point out that the same could be said in Medea in this sort of maybe not care for her children, and first the fact that she murdered them, but also in this quote, "Was it all for nothing, my children, the rearing of you, and all the agonizing labor, all the fierce pangs I endured at your birth?" In this quote, Medea makes the birthing of her children and the aspect of having children all about her. So it seems that Medea really does not have that much care for her children, especially in the quote, "I loathe you more than I love them," after killing them. So it can be said that more Medea than Jason did not care at all for her children.
So Medea's notions of motherhood are twisted, that in fact she's more selfish than nurturing and loving.
Again, going back to Jonathan Shea, the staff psychiatrist. So Medea basically gave up her life for Jason, and all her actions were justified by this love for Jason. So Jonathan Shea believes that when he betrayed her and her love went away, she had to fill it somehow. So she filled it with hatred towards Jason, and this hatred did overcome her love for her children. Her being like all her actions were then driven by this hatred in replacement of the love that she once had.
Her hatred and her notions of revenge are out of her control psychologically because of this previous trauma.
So, we all know that Medea was crazy, and the nurse agrees with this, but I also have a quote from the chorus. "If your husband worships a new bride, it is a common event, and be not exasperated." So this was as the course says, a common event at this time when we were doing research about men's roles and women's roles. And so since this was common, Medea's actions were taken way out of proportion, and she obviously just did not have the right to do everything that she did, and murdering on top of that is just not okay, and is just insane of her.
So Medea's reaction to her own personal trauma is out of proportion to the situation. That what Jason is doing is divorcing her, and that this is not the worst of evils, and it doesn't, as a result, necessitate the worst of reactions.
So also we want to raise another point that Medea was trying to have a voice, and she was deemed to be a witch for her intellect. So, and there's a quote that, because I have a little knowledge, some are filled with jealousy, others think me secretive and crazy. And another quote, I am afraid of you, you're a wizard possessed with evil knowledge. So in here, we are saying if Medea was a man, people would see him like the hero, but because she's a woman in the Greek society, she was seen as a witch, and her actions were seen as evil, not as a heroic act.
So the perception of Medea as evil, murderous, as insane even, is based on the fact that she's a woman and a foreigner in a culture that respects neither.
Now, I'd like to point out, you mentioned the quote from the king about, him being scared. I would argue that the reason she is seen as a witch is not because she is a woman or a foreigner, but instead because she ran around the city screaming about how she wants to murder the king's daughter, and about how she was premeditating murder the entire time, such as in the quote, "But he is such a fool that though he might have thwarted my plans by expelling me from the country, he has allowed me to stay over for this one day, in which I shall make corpses of 3 of my enemies, father and daughter and my own husband." So our argument is that, she's not a witch because of her gender or her country of origin, but instead her intentions, and that she made those intentions clear to everyone.
She had murderous rage, and she let everyone know of it.
Medea was a woman who was oppressed by the gender stereotypes of the time. So here, I think she was trying to voice her concern, and as a result, she may have gone a little overboard, but this is really, truly her trying to speak out against these stereotypes and find a voice amidst the field of masculine voices around her.
So Medea is a female voice, a voice for women, for Euripides, no matter what else she may be doing.
But we've seen on multiple occasions Medea being called out for craziness instead of speaking out for any kind of positive message that you mentioned before. When she's talking to the messenger in the same conversation I was talking about earlier, and she had learned of the death of the princess, the messenger had said, Are you sane and sound of mind, woman? You have inflicted a foul outrage on a king's home, yet you rejoice at the word of it, and you are not afraid." And that's just another example of someone, or a man specifically, at the time questioning her mind and her thought process because of how crazy she was. She wasn't crazy because she was intelligent. She was deemed crazy because she did crazy things.
So if she is a voice for oppressed womanhood, why would Euripides pick a woman who is so unbalanced and perhaps even insane to be that voice?
So we want to raise another point that Jason's reason behind marrying another woman was that she was a more suitable match. But if Jason's actions were so honorable, why he kept the secret from Medea. So in the book it says, "If you had been an honorable man, you would have sought my consent to the new match and not kept your plans secret from your own family."
Jason talks about the honor of his family, but in reality, if he were truly honest about his plans for his family's advancement, he would have come forth with that plan. His character is in question.
So, Jason knew that Medea was going to have a crazy reaction no matter when he told her. So just because he delayed in telling her a little bit doesn't change the fact that she was going to have a crazy reaction, because she has put so much worth into this man that she has no identity without him. And so he was a little bit afraid of what she would do. So that kind of warrants his decision of waiting to tell her.
So if Jason was in fact secretive, it was for good reason. He knew that his wife could be very dangerous, and he was afraid.
So you said that he knew she would have the reaction no matter when he told her. So it would have been a lot easier for Medea had he told her a little sooner. He himself states, "It is only natural for your sex to show resentment when their husbands contract another marriage." So he knows she's going to have this reaction. By delaying it, it set Medea up in this horrible position.
So Jason is fully aware of the gravity of his action and the effect it's going to have, not only on Medea, but how it usually affects women in general.
So another quote that I remember from the book was about how Medea said that she had to kill her children before they fell into the murderous hands of someone else. And so this is just another quote about how she is so crazy that she thought if she left her children alone and she was exiled, that they would be fallen into the hands of a murderous person. But in reality, she killed her children, which makes her the murderous person, which shows a little bit of her insanity and mental instability.
Her reasoning is not logical. She will murder her children so that they do not get murdered.
So there's a quote that, "But if my wedding has been some sordid thing had done in secret with a woman from some house in this land, that would be a crime. But this princess I now marry is a better match for me. By doing this, I'm protecting you and our children from poverty." So Medea feels that there is no escape, and she feels the divorce and her exile will ruin her. I think that justifies why she was scared of her.
Medea feels there is no escape for her. There is no other possibility for her. Is there an escape for Medea? Is there another possibility for her?
As seen in the text, there actually is an escape for her, and she secures her own escape by talking to another king of a nearby land, who she later becomes the mistress of. So this is, in the text, her misleading, because in fact she did have a way out. She had secured herself a way out by misleading a king.
So she goes on to live a long and full life under the protection of a king from another land, while everyone else is dead.
So yes, she may have secured a place, but at the time, she still felt that there was no place for her to go. So she felt she was betrayed by Jason. This may or may not be true, but for her, it was her truth. And this gives reasons to her actions. She states, "My enemies are letting out every sail, and there is no harbor into which I may flee from the menace of their attack." So here it kind of shows how Medea is feeling. She feels there's no escape. Yes, there may have been an escape, but she did not feel that way. And that's why she did what she did.
At the time, she just, again, was lost in her own pain and in her own sense of betrayal. Her truth was her truth. All right, we're going to make concluding comments now on both sides, not final statements, but concluding comments, and then we'll move to the final statements. Over here, please, a concluding comment or point, not final statement.
Our concluding comments would be, despite what is her truth or how she perceives the world to be, that doesn't matter when it comes to getting justice for the people she has killed.
Thank you very much. And concluding comment, Team Medea.
So this divorce that Jason had would ruin her. A Greek king himself said, "You don't mean that he has done so callous, so shameful a deed." So this divorce would truly wreck her life, especially since she was not a Greek. Originally, she is a foreigner, and this kind of increases the amount of pain she would feel from this exile.
Okay, thank you, both teams. Now we're going to conclude with the final statements. And who went first with the opening statement? Okay, so we will start with Team Jason and your concluding statement.
So overall, Jason is not the villain in this story. First of all, in this culture, in the time, it was completely normal for a husband to leave a wife if he wants to. Medea's reaction to this was suicidal and insane. Medea didn't even love her own children and made up some petty excuse as to why she murdered them. We have a quote, "Was it all for nothing, my children, the rearing of you, and all the agonizing labor and all the fierce pangs I endured at your birth?" In this quote, Medea is making the aspect of having kids all about her and what she has gone through. The only reason it seems she has kids was to please her husband, and she thinks nothing about the children and the fact that they don't want to get murdered and would like to grow old. Medea states, "I loathe you more than I love them." Saying this to Jason, that she hates him so much that it overcomes her love for her own children, is appalling and insane. The obvious resentment for her children is clear, and we can infer that she wishes that she did not have children. She describes childbearing in a manner that is entirely self-centered and speaks only about her own needs. To pair this with suicidal tendencies that she exhibits in the quote, "It's all over, my friends. I would gladly die. Life has lost its savor," made for a terrible combination. Overall, Medea is a loose cannon whose insanity left everyone around her hurt.
Thank you, Team Jason. And closing remarks, Team Medea.
The character Medea is a complex and multifaceted one. While her actions in the play are undoubtedly extreme and morally troubling, labeling her as purely evil oversimplifies her character. Instead, it's crucial to consider the influences that shaped her decisions, such as the betrayal of her husband, the cultural norms of her time, and even the divine interventions from the gods. She was labeled a witch and evil, but nonetheless refused to submit the masculine voices around her. Even today, Medea has a profound impact on people around the world. Let's consider the woman Rhoda Jones, who built a powerful drama program for women in prisons and labeled it the Medea Project. Through this example, Medea can be seen as a symbol of empowerment for women and a source of inspiration for women in challenging circumstances. Her actions, while reprehensible, can be seen as a response to the suffering and betrayal she endured, and her ultimate escape with divine assistance raises the questions about whether the gods themselves views her as an entirely malevolent figure. Medea's character serves as a reminder of the complexity of human emotions and the potential for external influences to drive individuals to desperate and morally ambiguous actions. In light of these considerations, we should refrain from hasty judgments and explore nuanced nature of her character and influences that led her actions in the play Medea.
Thank you, Team Medea. And thank you, viewers. This concludes our debate today, and we certainly hope that you've enjoyed it, and you might even be inspired to read some Greek tragedy of your own if you haven't already. We would highly recommend, of course, Euripides, but also would we recommend Sophocles, class? Of course we would. Okay. And please visit our website at MacDuffie and learn more about us. Thank you very much.